Thank you so much, you guys. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you very much. Anybody recognize my shirt? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Tough crowd out of the gate. Long story. My dad, when I was young, I don't know if that's everybody's experience, but my dad, I thought he was Superman. He was never home when Superman came on, and I put those two things together, and he looked a little bit like Superman, and I just admired him. He was the man. And one day he had this shirt on, this fish shirt on, and I just went, I got to have me one of those. I was maybe like 5, and I just said, Dad, that is the coolest shirt. And he said, well, I'll get you one, and we'll have a shirt like each other. And I thought, oh my. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if the store ran out of that shirt or if Dad just wasn't good at buying things. Mom did all the buying things. He just never did that. But he never got me the shirt. He didn't get me the shirt. And I would remind him, how we're going to do that fish shirt thing. And, well, he just didn't. And I honestly think I asked him all the way, through high school. Dad, that fish shirt, you don't have it anymore, but still. And he never got me the shirt. And I just, as a parent, it makes me think, just be careful what you're going to tell your kids, because they kind of don't forget, and it's really a big deal to them. So anyways, I tell this story. I tell it, obviously, everywhere I go. I'm in counseling over it, and but I've told Stacy this story years and years and years ago. And this Father's Day, she got me this. She got me this fish shirt. So. That's a good wife. That's a cool wife. And I swear, this is my dad's actual shirt. What I remember, that it looks exactly like it. And so wherever my dad is somewhere, he's going, thank you, Stacy. Finally, you just get the kid off my back on it. So I'm so happy. I love it. It just fits me the way I want to be. So thanks for listening to that story. Mike, that's all for me. No. Okay, guys, you know where we are. We are in the book of Ecclesiastes. And I am so excited to be here. I can't wait for what these coming weeks have. Stu will be in this next week. I'll be back. And then we've got Clint and Caleb and preaching this book. I am delighted. So Solomon, get there if you can. It's right after Proverbs, right before the Song of Solomon and Isaiah. And I just want to give us a little bit of review. If the 7 of you who are here in the service last 4th of July weekend, if you don't mind the repeat, thank you very much. I see you. But the rest probably need to catch up a little bit. So if you would, give me that first slide. Just for perspective, 965 BC is Solomon, a young Solomon, writing just very innocently the Song of Solomon. And it's a beautiful story. The woman that he describes is not perhaps someone I would like to date, but still, she's odd. But the Song of Solomon, 965. Then 15 years go by, and he writes the Book of Books, the most magnificent book on wisdom ever, Proverbs. And what we are studying here, whatever happens to Solomon, how can he be the same man who says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understandings, all your ways acknowledge him and he'll direct your path. And then something happens in that 15-year window. This is when Solomon goes off the rails. This is what we're looking at here, is that period of time, and then badgered, bedraggled, and beaten up and disillusioned and sad and worn out, he will write Ecclesiastes. And it's not a happy, it's not a victory book. It is him saying, this is what I saw. So you got to get some perspective. So I want to give this sense of what to look for in this book, because it's different than any other book in the Bible. If you bring up the next slide, you will hear him say, in fact, he starts it, verse 3, chapter 1, what advantage does man have in all of his work which he does under the sun? You'll hear under the sun over and over and over again. And he's saying, I'm trying to take God out of the picture. I know you're God, but you have let me down in my thinking. You have not done what I want you to do. So I'm going to examine what's out here. What's everything, what advantage, literally, what lasts, what keeps residue that makes it sustain to give me enjoyment, to give me substance, to give me meaning. Because for whatever reason, it hasn't been working for me. So if you can just keep that picture of that's what he's writing about. Whatever, I know you're real, I know you're out there, I know you're God, but I don't want you in this pursuit. This is my deal. And then he will say 9 times in the book, I said to myself. It's a self-referencing system. It's Solomon saying, I don't want to hear from anyone else that I said to myself. And then, so that perspective, and then he says, I tested all this with wisdom. You'll hear him say it over and over and over again. Yes, I was mixing wines all the time, but I was testing it always with wisdom. So it's a vaunted, arrogant sense of my wisdom is the final determinant on whatever I'm going to do on this thing. So I tested, it's whatever is under the sun. I'm saying to myself, I'm a self-referencing system, and I think that my wisdom will be able to help me solve it and figure it out. Every now and then, and I call this the tapestry. You see what we've got over here, life worth living. There is this tapestry. And below it, if it was a real expensive, beautiful tapestry, would be these jangly threads, these threads that don't match. They would clot it up and mat it up and think it just, if you look at a really, really expensive rug or tapestry, you'll see that that's true. They don't try to trim it off. It's just this. And that's where Solomon spends most of his time. He can't see. It doesn't make sense. There's no order or rhyme. There's no pattern. What should be isn't, and what shouldn't be is. It makes no sense to him. But every now and then, Solomon gets on top of the tapestry and looks down and goes, oh, man. 6 or 7 times in this whole book, he will come to this conclusion. Sometimes it's begrudging because it's the last answer he wants. But he says, gosh, there's no enjoyment without you, God. You're the one who actually gives enjoyment. You give wisdom. Everything that I was pursuing, by putting you over here, there was no chance it could ever work. And then he'll go right back to his stuff again, but look for that. So that for me is such a great help for me to see what I'm looking at as I'm reading this book. Now, I've asked you to consider something. If you have an old journal laying around, or if you went to a conference and they gave you a journal, they always do, and then they write their name across it, and then you go, I don't want to use this, and it just sits around. And I got like 11 of them. If you want to go over to my house, I've got them. And just take a journal, and for this book, as honest as Solomon is, he's giving us this incredible gift of his vulnerable honesty. It would be so good during this series, we're going to be in it for 20 weeks, this is the second week of it, to actually write in there, today, if I'm honest, I'm feeling this. And let this guide you. Yeah, Yeah, I kind of have been looking at this of what can I get out of this under the sun. And I've been a self-referencing system. I've been saying, yeah, I said to myself, self, and I'm not letting anyone in right now. And I think that my wisdom is enough to figure this out. Wow. Okay, today is incredible. Today I saw what you're doing, God. Today I got up on top of the tapestry and I saw the order and beauty of the threads, the way you have put it in full order. Today's an incredible... Write this down in a journal. It will be a great gift to you to have, to look back on, to be able to say, I get it. It'll journey along with Solomon with this. As you're reading this through over and over again, give yourself that great, great gift. Well, let me have that next slide. I think Ecclesiastes has helped me so much with understanding wisdom and the limits of wisdom. I think I always thought the end game was to get wisdom. If you just got wisdom, you knew everything and you would just be able to help people and people would come to your house and bring you beverages and stuff. I don't know what I thought, but to see what Solomon gets into, being the wisest man in the world, I go, okay, so it's really helped me temper an understanding of wisdom, the beauty and the limitations of wisdom. I said this first one because this would have been my life, most of my life. Passion without wisdom makes one loudly foolish. Wisdom without love makes one judgmental. Wisdom without humility makes one self-reliant. Wisdom without trust in God makes one, as you see here in chapter 1, cynical and despairing, jaded, aloof. Wisdom without trust in God creates inaccurate conclusions. It's incredible. This man can see so much, but some of his conclusions are absolutely wrong. They're so way off. I said that to you last week, that some of my best friends will tell me, my wife and Bill Thrall, for example, all the time, they will say, John, your insights sometimes are extraordinary. It's what you try to do with them that is odd for all of us. Very, very odd. Your conclusions, let us do the concluding part. You just get those insightful observations, and we'll take it from there, Tiger. And that's what's happening with Solomon here. Wisdom can only be wise in what it trusts. So wisdom without trust allows for an accurate description, but a grossly inaccurate conclusion. And then I was thinking about the religion that was passed on to Solomon that Solomon didn't fully get. I see the form, but I don't get the relationship. And so I want to do this journey with you over here. So as we go through this as believers in Christ, or some of those on that journey of Christ, we have to remember that we came to this faith not for a show of morality, but for an intensely and wonderfully intimate relationship, playful relationship, daily relationship, ongoing, enjoying every moment relationship with an actual living, breathing person, Jesus Christ, who went for the cross for us, rose from the dead from us, and now says, come here. Whatever you got, whatever issue, I can redeem it, I can heal it, I can restore it. Say the word. Solomon didn't know that. You and I know that. Well, chapter 1 was just such a disappointment at how life works. You just when you get wisdom, you lose your memory. You can't pass it on. He's frustrated that nature's ongoing and that man's transitory. He says it should be the other way around. It's all vanity. Well, today he's going to look at pleasure. and he is going to try to pursue, how do I optimize my pleasure? That's what I want. If you'll throw that up. The worst thing Solomon can do is what he's doing. Because pleasure diminishes and eludes in direct proportion to how much it is pursued. To be able to enjoy pleasure is a byproduct of an entirely different sort of pursuit. I don't know, I was just thinking about it this week. This story that I'm about to read from On My Worst Day, I'm never more in touch. It was the first time that I realized what Solomon's about to get himself into. It's the story about cheesecake. 1964. Few foods captivated me in my youth like cheesecake. I was always left frustrated, wanting more than I was allowed in any given sitting. My parents never allowed it into our home, treating cheesecake as a luxury only royalty should possess, like caviar or gold leaf chocolate dishes. On the rare occasion that Dad did take us to a restaurant that might carry cheesecake, he always made sure that he pointed out the ridiculously high price of desserts. Reading the menu, he'd grumble under his breath, "These desserts cost about what I make in a day's work. What kind of people would order such a thing?" I don't know when he became Southern, but anyway, there it is. But on my birthday last year, in 1963, he took us to the Magic Lamp. The nicest restaurant in Upland. It had white linen tablecloths and breadsticks in a basket covered with a matching linen napkin. My dad allowed me to order dessert. When it finally arrived, it was so incredibly thin and tiny. A sliver of cheesecake nearly lost on the dessert plate. The waiter could have served it with tweezers. I'm thinking I could down about 19 of these. When I asked if I could have a second piece, my dad looked at me like he might give his speech about people starving in the Congo. All of this is to help explain to you why this summer day in '64 turned out the way it did. I was pedaling my blue Stingray into downtown Upland to watch a matinee at the Grove Theater. I didn't make it that far. Turning off Euclid onto 9th Street, I was physically pulled by what smelled like freshly baked cheesecake. The aroma came from the Upland Bakery. I was suddenly transported, positioned in front of the glass store window in time to watch an oversized man in a white baker's uniform slide a majestic, freshly baked cheesecake from an oven with an immense wooden paddle. I am oft and accurately accused of runaway hyperbole, but none of what I am about to write bears the marks of such a device. I walked into the store and up to the glass counter on whose racks the cake had only now been placed. Pointing to it, while keeping eye contact with the woman behind the counter, I asked, "Yeah, how much for this? How much does it cost?" She answered, "A slice?" And I responded, "No. The entire cheesecake, how much?" She quoted a nearly impossible amount. But I would find a way. I would find a way to purchase this. The thought that I could for once have all the cheesecake I wanted had suddenly become the single most important goal of my life. I spoke out clearly and slowly. "Would you please not let anyone else buy this? I'm going to go home now and find money to buy it. Promise." And then I was off on my bicycle. Mom was not home. I had 85 cents already on me for the movie and snacks. I dug through my dad's change cup in his dresser. I scoured every room of the house. I probably rounded up maybe like $1 worth of coins, still pitifully short of the amount to own that cake. Then I remembered my Indian head nickel collections. A child of the Depression, my dad now had many collections, perhaps as a hedge against impending poverty. He wanted me to have similar passion, so he had purchased a fleet of those heavy cardboard blue booklets with the slots for Indian head nickels. A slot for every year they were minted. Dad helped me get started with some fairly rare coins. I soon got into it, and in the last several years had filled many of the slots. Somehow able to ignore perspective, consequence, and future regret, I bent back the cardboard booklets and popped out coins until I had over $5 worth of nickels in my pockets of my jeans. I got back on my stingray and raced to the bakery. There I proceeded to pour out piles of nickels onto that counter. And I walked out with the entire cheesecake in a box. Now, I should have taken the cake home and shared half with my family. I did not do that. I should have located a plastic fork and knife and eaten it at a local park. I didn't do that. I should have at least sat down. I didn't do that. I walked into the alley behind their store. Like a child raised by wolverines, I began breaking off huge chunks of warm, fresh cheesecake and shoving them into my mouth. It tasted so incredibly good for almost minutes. To my credit, I was over halfway through the giant cake before it became odious. Oppressive. I was now slowly and reluctantly wadding it into my mouth. I started feeling sick 2/3 of the way through, and I tossed the rest into a dumpster several feet away. I wandered around to the front, a boy dazed by sugar and disappointment. What just happened? I thought as I stared at the road, slowly weaving my bike through the neighborhoods towards home. What am I going to tell Dad about the nickels? Someday he's going to want to see the collection, how it's going. What did I do? Why did I just do that? What's wrong with me? But later that evening, an even deeper question worked its way to the surface. Why didn't that work today? Why didn't that cheesecake make me happy? I don't think either of my parents ever heard this story. I can't remember how I explained the missing nickels, but I walked forward from that day on a more urgent mission to find what food, entertainments, amusement, activity, or repetition of activity would satisfy me long enough to satisfy this unmet urge inside of me. And as I do in every story in the book, I imagine what Jesus was saying to me at that time. And so, John, I don't want to rub this in, Jesus would say, but if you'd held on to those Indian head nickels, you could buy everyone in Upland a cheesecake once a month for the rest of their lives. Trying to solve this internal craving will be the most singular driving force for decades of your life. It'll harm you more than any person can. It'll break your heart. One day, no time soon, you will find what your longing and unmet urges are calling for. Then you'll begin to learn what gives food its maximum taste and experiences their full measure of joy and sunsets their full beauty. I'm right here. And though you will go into some very strange places before we meet, this obsession will not destroy you. One day, your willingness to articulate your battle with it will make you safe and real and trusted to some others. Until that time, you will crave the Jack-in-the-Box taco combo like few things on earth. I could say you could do worse, but I'm not sure I'd be accurate. Gosh, isn't that Solomon? So, Back to Solomon. Imagine this long row of doors. Huge doors. Now remember what he's done with God. God, you've been holding out on me. I'm tired of being needy and dependent on you. You don't give me what I want, the way I want, when I want. You're way too much work. You're always trying to teach me something I don't want to have to learn. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of being tired of waiting. I'm missing out. There's something out there that I need. You don't play fair. It seems like others are given a better life. Now, I've got access to everything, but religion has been tying my hands. And I'm exceedingly wealthy and successful. I play by a different set of rules, thank you. And I'm going to take what you gave me to give away, and I'm going to use it to find what's going to make me happy and fulfilled. And he gathers up this crowd. In fact, 1 Kings 4:22 and 23 talk about the food that it took to serve at the palace, and they imagined that food could feed 10 to 20,000 people. He does not go this journey alone. So, all right, the first door that we go through is pleasure. I said to myself, come now, chapter 2, verse 1, I will test you with pleasure. The enjoyable sensations that come from the gratification of personal desires. You know what this is, right? This is hedonism. Hedonism is the pursuit of pleasure, sensual self-indulgence. He breaks it into two categories. Laughter. I said of laughter. So two categories, laughter and other pleasures. You guys, I love, and you know I do, love laughter. And laughter, when it is the expression of a relationship where I feel safe and trusted, we play and laugh until we are crying. It is a beautiful gift of love, of safety, of friendship, of grace, of knowing that you're known and loved, of sometimes saying the opposite about each other and sometimes witnessing something together. But when laughter is just laughter and it's not coming out of that love relationship, it's empty and hollow. 7:6 of Ecclesiastes says, the laughter of fools is like the crackling of thorns under the pot. And so he kind of tries to drum up laughter. Somebody make me laugh. Bring in the funny guy. I remember being up in Flagstaff right after college, and I was the funny guy. I would go to parties, and I could do this thing with the radio dial where I would do different voices as I was going up and down the radio dial. And I'd be at a party, and they'd go, hey, there's the funny guy. Do that thing you do with the dial. And the first time, it was hilarious to people. Then I'd come to another party sometime. Hey, hey, funny guy, do the dial thing. About the third time, people just kind of ignored me. In of itself, it's not enough. Gosh, I want it to be. I wanted to just have it be so fun and funny, but he says it's madness to have it not in the context of something. And pleasure, what does it accomplish? He says, pursued pleasure only masks my reality by misusing my senses. Many of us repeat a cycle of lining up potentially pleasing events. We select them by refining our preferences over time and then shaping our lifestyles to experience more of those sensations. We can intently hunt out pleasure rather than resting in a God-trusting life to provide the pleasure. See, the first doesn't work. We're shocked and disappointment as the payoff decreases over time. And we mistakenly conclude that it must have to do with the insufficiency of the object of the pleasure, so we trade our interest to another object of pleasure. And after a while, Our senses get jaded, now unable to easily enjoy pleasure when it is given as a gift. Pleasure is best experienced by those who are not demanding it, who don't set the terms. It is astounding how little it takes for them to experience deep and satisfying pleasure. Gosh, I wanted that to work. So Solomon's first door that he tries to make it work, he walks through and says, gosh, I didn't do it. Okay, what's next? All right, wait. I'm doing this sober. I need to get a buzz. What if, okay, well, that's the problem. Okay, what if I got high? What if I kind of got doped up just a little bit? Now my wisdom's going to guide me. And so he says, I explored, verse 3, with my mind how to stimulate my body with wine while my mind was guiding me wisely, how to take hold of folly until I could see what good there was for the sons of men to do under the heaven for the few years of their lives. Okay, that's it. I'll take some wine, and I'm going to combine it with other, and then I'm going to do it certain times of the day, maybe the evening. I'm going to see, is it better with people around, not people around? I'm going to see 1 glass, 2 glasses, 4. I'm going to see what works best to give me that optimum state of buzz, that optimum state of stimulating my body by something that's not natural. Now, guys, there's nothing wrong with wine, but there's something very wrong with drinking to fill that which you feel is missing in your life. One day he's sitting there with a glass of uber expensive wine and it tastes like syrup to him, and he's going, I'm doggone it. And he walks back again and says, I thought that was going to work. Okay. All right, what's next? You know what? I have everything. I need to do projects that make me feel good about myself. I'm going to do some good things for mankind. That's what I need to do. I have this optimum. So it says that in verse 4, I enlarged my works. I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself. I planted them in all kinds of fruit trees. I made ponds which still exist today, the pools of Solomon, the southwest of Jerusalem. You could still see these giant indentions. I made ponds of water for myself from which to irrigate a forest of growing trees for myself. I bought male and female slaves, and I had homeborn slaves. I also possessed flocks and herds larger than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. The third door of accomplishments. This has to do it. Because I'm not just, yes, I'm selfish about it, it's for me, but others can see it and it's for the good of the city. And boy, did he do it. His house took 14 years to build. The temple took 7. Wow. I want to just for a second, if you'll allow me, just to take a moment here. 1 Kings 4:33 and 34. He spoke of trees from the cedar that's in Lebanon, even to the hyssop that grows on the wall. He spoke of animals and birds and creeping things and fish. Men came from all over the world to hear the wisdom of Solomon from these things that he had done. He says, I've done all these things, and I still feel today, looking at these groves of sycamores and everything that I've done, and I want to go, what do I want to do next? It just, doggone it. Certainly this had to be it, this This sense of making the community stronger with the resources I had, but it didn't. All right, Solomon, come on. Think. Say to yourself, I'm letting my wisdom guide me. Come on. What next? Wealth. He says in 2:8, I collected for myself silver and gold in the treasury of kings and provinces. Yeah, wealth. I'm the wealthiest man in the world. 2 Chronicles, all of these say people would come around, they were blown away at how much he had, more than any man in the whole world. And after a while, it says all of his drinking goblets were made of gold. And after a while, he's just holding that goblet saying, I got like 42 of these. And they don't improve the taste, and I don't like the weight of them. I'm so stinking wealthy, and there's nothing I want. There's nothing that's going to... I'm miserable. Got it! Another door that he thought for sure was going to be it, and it's not. Okay, we're not done. Now it starts to get odd. What if I pleasurize myself with humans, with other humans? And so he says, I provided for myself male and female singers, and the pleasures of men, many concubines, 300 concubines, some of them men. I don't think this was an issue of homosexuality or heterosexuality. I just think he was using humans to find what he thought might bring pleasure. And nights in the palace were filled with wild, multiple relationships of intimacy. And Solomon says, gosh, this doesn't do it. It's not right. It's not doing it for me. I feel stupid. What do I do now? Power. I will pursue being the most powerful man in the history of mankind. Who has more power than me? And after they leave my palace, nobody cares. They work around me. And they don't think about me later on. It means nothing. I can do anything I want at any time, and I'm usually wrong. Even though I'm wise. Got it! I want to be famous. I want people to remember my name. Not just powerful, but I want to be famous. I want to be on the lips of people. Isn't he great? And he does. It says, I became great. I increased more than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. The Queen of Sheba visits him and says, I've heard about you. Talk to me. I want you to answer me questions. And when she is done, she says, you are the greatest man I've ever met. And it says his fame spread through all the regions. In fact, she says, I want to give you whatever it is that I have. You are so great. You are famous. Do you know that you're talked about everywhere? I relate to this one. I thought if I was famous enough that I would be happy. And to watch this man say, nobody was ever more famous than I was. And it didn't work. John, save your cab fare, save your Uber fare, because it doesn't work. Thus I considered my activities, verse 11, and which my hands had done in the labor that I exerted. And one day Solomon is reclining in a lush, spring-fed garden in one of his many parks. He's holding a glass of perfectly aged white wine from the best of his vineyards. He's lounging in a robe of silk and linen on a perfectly contoured couch made of cedar and goose down, the gift of a foreign king. He's underneath a rare Egyptian tree, the result of grafting one with another to not only give wonderful shade, but a perfectly blended aroma of sage and mint. The greatest singers and musicians in the world are in the background playing his favorite music. The weather is perfect. He has his favorite concubine nearby. She is stunningly beautiful. Servants are bringing the best wine and cheeses. Next to him sits a bowl of perfectly ripened fruit from nearby trees that he's planted. Others carry scented towels to cool his neck, while leaders stand by ready to appraise him of recent conquests, financial upturns, and the state of the economy. World leaders are finagling outside the gate to gain audience with him, and close to him are the funniest people in the kingdom, tossing out great wit and elegance. And all Solomon can think at this moment is what I would give to be somewhere else, alone, where I could contemplate how my life got so messed up and tediously painful. It says, I looked at the labor I had exerted, and all of these doors were vanity and striving after wind. There was no profit in them under the sun. Nothing wrong with the things, some of them, but it was the pursuit of the things. It all burned away, leaving him jaded in disappointment. Nothing could really excite him after that. He was burned out. He says, one more door. Knowledge and wisdom. Everybody go away. I'm going to do this one by myself. So verse 12, I turn to consider wisdom, madness, and folly. And I saw, you know what? Wisdom, verse 13, it does excel folly as light excels darkness. The wise man, they're in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I know one fate befalls them both. And I said to myself, as the fate of the fool, it's going to befall me. Why have I been so extremely wise? And so I said to myself, this too is vanity. There's no lasting remembrance of the wise man. So I hated life for the work which had been done under the sun. It's all of it, even my ability to think better than others. It's stupid. It doesn't work. I can't solve anything that I'm wise about. His conclusion is he goes into depression. Solomon has made the critical mistake of taking what was given to him by God for the benefit of others and attempting to pleasurize himself with it. Whatever gifts you and I have been given, they were never for your accomplishing your fulfillment or self-actualization. They're to be given away. And here's the sweet surprise. That's what fulfills us. That right there is a secret. And I have this new nature in me now that I can understand that Solomon could never get it. Psalm 16:11, though, that David wrote, in your presence is fullness of joy. In your right hand are pleasures forever. You're the one who gives them out. Solomon missed that. He was so wise in his early days. The kingdom flourished under him. Remember the two women who said, no, that's my child. No, that's my child. And he said, give me a sword. I'm going to cut it in half. And the one woman said, yeah, cut it in half. The other woman said, no, let her have the baby. And Solomon went, that lady right there, that's her son. And people were stunned by his wisdom. Solomon was bringing healthy clarity through his wisdom, but then he changed to misuse it and receive selfish pleasure through his wisdom. Oh, you guys, we now, these new creatures, we have new life in us now. The one thing our God says to us, I'm not going to give you 11 commandments, I'm going to give you a whole new order of commandment. 1, love each other. It's the way I designed you. It's the way I made you. It's who you are. It's what you most want to do. And when you do it, it'll blow your mind. It'll give you a life worth living. Nothing else can. Our vision must be to help others discover what they are freed from and also to help them discover the wonder of what they've been freed into. I get to ask the beautiful questions when I'm no longer fighting to prove that I'm enough or hiding from the things that I fear will confirm that I'm not enough. The beautiful questions. The beautiful questions. Here they are. God, who do I get to love? God, who's been waiting to love me well and I haven't let them in? God, how can I receive your love wildly and endlessly? God, how do I best get to love those who don't know you? God, what dreams and destiny are you forming in my heart? God, who could I stand together with in a vision from you? God, who can help me to mature into my destiny? God, who can I help to mature into their destiny? God, what brings my heart great joy? Oh God, what do you and I, what do we do best together? And God, thank you. Such get pleasure and joy as a gift from God's hand.